Go into first, rev it out a little bit, some tire spin off the line. We are away into seconds, and I do need to upshift a third to get there in 6.26 seconds. Holy shift! I'm into first gear, gonna rev it out a bit. On a tire spin off the line, down into second, and I should be able to get to 60 without shifting. There we go, 6.3 seconds. Tire spin may have killed the time, but not the fun. Pin the throttle, hold the revs, let go of the clutch, some tire spin off the line, now we got grip. Down into second, and there's 60 in 4.79 seconds. I'm good with that. Hey crew, let's compare the Toyota GR86, Mazda MX-5 Miata, and Ford Mustang GT, all with manuals. Hey crew, I've got the key to this 24 Toyota GR86 Trueno edition, and today we're going to see what it's like to live with. Starting with the spacing in my driveway, which is 16 feet wide by 19.5 feet long. I've got the GR86 parked right there at the edge, sitting next to a new Honda Ridgeline that my wife is reviewing. If you want to check out her content, it's at Mobile Mama on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. She's done a nice parking job with that one as well, also off to the edge, and that leaves plenty of space to walk between the vehicles, even to wheel a double stroller through for our kiddos. The nose of the GR86 is back at least a foot from the front of the driveway, and still there's lots of space at the back, even enough room to walk in front of the hedge to my front door. When first hopping inside with the key fob in my pocket, I can put my hand on the door handle that will unlock the doors, and this is 1, 2, heck, I can swing the door almost all the way out. Got to stop there before touching the ridgeline. So 2 defined notches leaves me plenty of space to get inside. And the vehicle is low, but it's not crazy low. I just need to duck my head on my way inside. Hello cabin crew. Thanks for joining for this day in the life in the Toyota GR86 manual. Now in this video, I want to see if this is just a weekender sports car or if it can do daily driver duty as well. Let me start by firing it up, clutch in, foot on the brake. And let's go listen to that 4-cylinder idle from outside. There's a low rumble from that sports exhaust system, but it quickly settles down to something that is more than tolerable for your neighbors. Hey crew, I've got the key to that 24 Mazda MX-5 Miata. And today we're going to see what it's like to live with. Starting with the spacing in my driveway, which is 16 feet wide by 19.5 feet long. I've got the Miata parked pretty close to the edge here, sitting next to a Mitsubishi Outlander that my wife is reviewing. If you want to check out her content, it's at Mobile Mama on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. She's got that one parked just a couple inches in from the edge. And this just goes to show how small of a car the Miata is. I feel like you could park at least 1, maybe 2 motorcycles in between these 2 vehicles. And the nose of the Miata is probably 2 feet back from the front of my driveway. And at the back of the vehicle, there is 5.5 feet of room here, and there's plenty of space to walk in front of the hedge on the way to my front door. When first getting inside with the key fob in my pocket, I press on this black dot on the door handle that will unlock the door, and I can go 1 defined, forget it. I'm just swinging the door all the way out, and it still is not going to touch the Mitsubishi. This is my access point to this car, and it is pretty low, so I have to squat down fairly far and then scoot inside, ducking my head, and closing up that door. Hello cabin crew, thanks for joining me in these tight quarters of the MX-5 Miata. In this day in the life, I want to see if living with a tiny 2-door sports car is practical enough if a family has a second vehicle like that Outlander there. So let's begin by firing it up. And listening to the idle outside the car. Some depth from the 2-liter 4-cylinder, but nothing too crazy. No neighbor is going to be disturbed by that startup. I've got the key to a 24 Ford Mustang GT. And today we're going to see what it's like to live with this pony car. You might start your day by walking down your walkway and checking out the spacing in your driveway. Here it is parked 6 to 8 inches from the side, sitting next to my CT5V Blackwing. That's also about 6 inches from the edge. And that leaves plenty of room to walk in between the cars, or even wheel a stroller, as my wife did earlier this week. This one is painted in grabber blue metallic, and it's got the bronze accent package for things like the Mustang and for those 19-inch wheels. What's interesting about this color is it's very similar to my CT5V Blackwing's electric blue, like really close. Mine's maybe a slightly lighter shade of blue, but you let me know in the comments if you can tell the difference at all, and if you can, which one you prefer. We'll start by firing up this 5.0 Mustang. Now, opening up this door to the first notch still leaves me 4 or 5 inches from my Blackwing and plenty of room to get inside. While the animations go on the TFT display, I'll clutch in, foot on the brake, hit the red start stop button. And hear that Coyote V8 roar to life. I always want to think that the e-brake is actually down here, but it is in fact up. It's an electronic parking brake that looks like a mechanical handbrake. So it is in fact up. You just pull that up and that's engaged, and we'll listen for the idle outside the car. So the initial startup was voluminous, but now it's actually pretty mellow. This is not going to ruffle any feathers in your neighborhood. Now let me show you where I would stick the items I bring with me every day. My smartphone is going to have to go inside this console that is also the cup holders. There's not a wireless charging pad, nor is there really a great spot for your phone, because when I stick this in here, it can slide forward and backward. I do also have my wallet inside there. The key fob could go in here as well, actually. So that's those 3 items taken care of. And in these large cup holders, I did manage to fit my big water bottle. The only thing remaining was the GoPro accessories, and that did need to go into the glove box. But you know what? Pretty decent storage for a small sports car. And let me show you where I stashed the items I brought with me. So I've got my smartphone here in this slot. It's not a wireless charging pad. Inside the tiny console, I've got my wallet layered on top of my sunglasses and a granola bar, which happens to fit the opening perfectly. And I do have to stack these just so that it closes. And there is no glove box in the Miata, so instead you have this area between the seats, but it is pretty large enough to fit my Racebox 0 to 60 timer, some information on the vehicle, the manual, and a secondary cup holder that can be stored in these slots, or as we saw this one here on the passenger side. And I didn't have enough space to bring my large water bottle, so I just have a single-use bottle sitting in that cup holder. I'm gonna have to store some personal items here, like my phone and the water bottle that I've got on me. I'll put in a door pocket. I can easily sit on down into the cabin and close up that door and say, hello cabin crew, thank you for joining me for this day in the life video in the 24 Ford Mustang GT. So let's see, I'll stick my wallet and the key fob in the glove box, and then my smartphone can go here on the wireless charging pad. Now I'm going to throw on my seat belts and let down the mechanical e-brake, then going into first gear, letting out the clutch. I'm going to roll forward here, and I do have the benefit of these curb ramps here to help bridge the gap for the gutter at the front of my driveway, because there might be some scraping if I took that head on otherwise. Back end is now down, and I am going to clear those trash cans. I am belted up, the handbrake is down, going into first, and I'm going to roll forward here. I've temporarily moved my curb ramps, so I don't have the assistance of those as I go over the gutter in front of my driveway, and that just proves that clearance isn't that big of an issue in the Miata. Let me throw on my safety belt and choose from my drive modes here on the steering wheel. We've got normal, sport, track, drag strip, I like the animations, slippery for that wet weather, custom, and we're back to normal. We'll start in normal. You put your foot on the brake and then press down on the electronic parking brake. You're good to go there. Into first gear and slowly let out the clutch. Clearance shouldn't be an issue here at all. But just as an aid, I do have some curb ramps. And away we go. And we're on our way to get some coffee and start my day off right. And on my way to the shop, I can talk you through some of the basics of daily driving the GR86, beginning with the turn signal. And specifically how this stock is designed, where it always comes back to the starting position, and that bothers me. And here's why. Even though I can see the indicator and hear it, the lack of satisfaction of actually moving it to the downward position and having it stay there, it bothers me. And I may be weird about that, but it just does. Now we'll see about the turning radius and whether it is a tight circle. It is indeed succinct, as you might expect from a small wheelbase rear drive sports car. But you know what? It follows through. And the brakes, obstacle detected. Yeah, I plan on stopping before I hit it. The brakes are easy to modulate. The safety systems are perhaps a little bit overzealous. This gearbox is very easy to use. The throws are really short and notchy. There's clear definition when you've engaged the gear, and the clutch pickup and release point are well defined. So even if you're not very well versed in driving a manual transmission, you'll find the job to be as painless as possible in this car. And the pickup of velocity, even in fourth gear, is readily there, because even though there's only 184 pound-feet of torque, it's nice and low down, and the vehicle only weighs about 2,800 pounds. Even though it is an easy gearbox to use, just keep in mind that compared to an automatic, having to clutch in and clutch out with a lot of stoplights is going to be more tedious than just not worrying about a clutch with an automatic transmission. But there's more satisfaction. There is more engagement, and that's why you buy the sports car. That's why you get the manual transmission. Now let's talk ride quality for a second, because this Trueno edition has a set of Sachs dampers, and that is primarily for performance applications, but also, as I'm experiencing it around town, even though this vehicle bops around the road surface, as most sports cars do, it stays very well dampened over harsh blemishes. And so getting around town, even if you've got pocketed roads, shouldn't be all that much of a pain. And adding to my comfort level are these seats, which are ergonomically shaped. They hold me perfectly in place. They're well padded. They're manual adjusting, which I don't mind at all because I can quickly get into that seat position. My only issue with them is that I wish they lowered a little bit more, because my head is fairly close to this roof line at 6 feet tall, and I just want to be more in the driving experience, and I'm sitting a little bit up high. Otherwise, I have no complaints for the ergonomics of this driving posture. The tilt and telescope of the wheel means it's just right for me, and the feel of this wheel in my hands is excellent. It's a nice small diameter, and the thickness of the rim means I've got a good firm grasp of it. And the gear selector falls perfectly right here at the crook of my elbow, resting on the padding of this console. I'm at 6 feet tall for reference, and my head's just kind of grazing against the roof with this hat on. Look at this 930 turbo. Beautiful. Wow. Anyway, I'm probably the upper limit for a passenger that can fit with a reasonable level of comfort and visibility inside the MX-5 Miata. And speaking of visibility, I do have to duck my head down to see the stoplights here, because otherwise I'm staring straight into the sun visor. And while I'm sitting here momentarily at this light, listen in for the turn signal sound. It's pretty modest. I like it. And I want to start today with a cup of coffee, so I'm going to pull into this drive-through because I have something to demonstrate for you. May I please have a grande decaf iced latte? That was not what I wanted to demonstrate to you. I can order a drink at Starbucks. No, what I want to demonstrate is that the top stows so readily in the Miata that at a moment's notice, I could put that down and now have perfect access to whatever I order from that drive-thru. Good morning. Good morning.
Are you like a YouTuber?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called MilesPerHr.
You pulled up and then my team started talking about your car.
Oh,
they like it.
Oh, they like it? That's
Yeah.
cool. It's actually not my car. I'm just reviewing it.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too. So there you go. They like the car and I like the access. Oh, I am using this one cup holder, so I got to pull out the second one now and stick it into these slots. That's it. And onwards. And now that the top is down, that's precisely where it's going to stay. Because when you purchase a Miata, you're effectively buying additional freedom. And why would you ever restrict yourself from that? It's the wind in your hat freedom. The freedom to row your own gears. The feeling of lightness and agility. The maneuverability. Look at that turning circle. And a perky horn. Get out of my way. I'm having fun. And it's just so easy to drive as well. This 6-speed manual, which is the only correct transmission for the Miata, even though they do offer a pretty good 6-speed automatic, is such a breeze to operate. The throws of the gear selector are tight and crisp, notching into each gear very clearly. The pickup and release point of that clutch are also quite transparent, and the power delivery from this naturally aspirated 4-cylinder is so linear that it's never scary, but never slow either, because this thing doesn't weigh much at all. It just gets up to speed. And then the ride quality is also worth praise. This Grand Touring model absorbs the road blemishes very nicely, and the seats are terrific, shockingly good. Such nice support and padding. I love driving this thing everywhere. So let's start with a test of the turning radius. So we're clear. I'm gonna go into first, crank the wheel. And find an appreciably tight turning circle. I'm good with that. Next up is going to be an indicator sound test. Funny, kind of sounds like a horse getting up at a gallop. Cluck, clunk, cluck, clunk, cluck, clunk. And how about the horn? Sharp, not a pleasant tune. I mean, horns shouldn't be pleasant. They should get someone's attention, and that one definitely will. As will the sound of this 5.0 Coyote V8. We don't have the active valve exhaust system, so there's no quieter tune than this. So you won't need your coffee in the morning, you're just gonna need a little more throttle. Now hopefully, if you chose the 6-speed manual version of the Mustang GT, which is the standard transmission for this car, then that means you enjoy rowing your own gears. But that doesn't mean that you enjoy subjecting yourself to a transmission that is a chore to operate day in and day out in traffic on your commute. You don't want something that's gonna wear out your arm, your leg, or your sanity. I'm pleased to report that this Getrag 6-speed, this updated version in the new Mustang, is quite a bit easier to live with than the last one for one very important reason, and that is that the friction point of the clutch is much more defined. In the previous model, you had no clue really whether you were in gear or not. You might be popping clutch, you might be running red lights as that camera is, oh my gosh, they didn't make it. You might be popping clutch, you might be over revving, and you just weren't sure whether you're in gear. Now it is discernible. The clutch release point is very late in the clutch pedal travel, and so that takes a little getting used to, but it's not a concern because you know when you're in gear. The throws are not terribly short, but they're not all that long. I imagine the Tremec 6-speed is going to have shorter throws. That's the one in the Dark Horse version of the Mustang, and it also will probably have a little more feel, but still, the gates are well defined enough, and the notch into each gear is clear. It also doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get into the next gear, so you're not going to wear out your arm, you're not going to wear out your leg, and you are going to stay sane. And furthermore, to ease your operation, you do have a rev match function in the track app section. You turn that on, and on your downshifts, it'll blip the throttle for you, so when you're at low speeds, you're not having to just perfectly time your own blips of throttle. Pause for obligatory tunnel run. Yeah, that checks the box. So whether you choose the manual or the automatic version in the Mustang GT, you're still going to deal with the same level of ride and seat comfort in this car. So it's a good thing both of those are excellent here. Specifically the seats. These are some of the most comfortable chairs I've ever sat in a performance car. They contour well to my body, they hold me in place but don't squeeze the life out of me, and the seat padding is supple and yet supportive. We got it. And on top of that, we've got excellent ride quality from these optional MagneRide adaptive dampers. As standard, you get fixed suspension, and I can't speak to how supple that ride is, though I imagine that for that car, it's tuned more for comfort and for cruising than for stiffness and handling. But with the MagneRide, yes, it stays fairly taut over the changes in the road, so you're kind of always moving around a little bit, but the dampening insulates you from the harshness of that road. So you feel like whether your commute is for 20 minutes or for 2 hours, you can do it because you're gonna get to your destination and be fresh. And the giddy up was good for the city, but is it enough to make passes on the highway? I'm gonna stay in fourth gear and see that there's some pep there. But if I need more, I can easily drop down. And in the upper part of the rev range, the 86 really gets moving. Plenty for me, that's for sure. And now hopping back over a lane and dropping to sixth gear. Let me quiet up and listen for the cabin volume. Now this is a louder road surface than smooth tarmac like over there. And so I'm getting more tire noise heard in this cabin. Passing vehicles, I hear them, but it's not overly disruptive. And the wind noise is minimal. Maybe that's just because I'm hearing so much tire noise. And here we go, I found some tarmac, a quieter road surface, and indeed, there's much less tire noise to make for an acceptable commuting volume level. And when traffic rears its ugly head, you can utilize the adaptive cruise control system with a following distance that you can adjust here. And so I'm not touching the brake right now, and it was slowing down to match the speed of the slowing traffic, and then it will maintain that gap. I do need to shift, so it's not going to be as convenient to use adaptive cruise as with an automatic transmission car, but it's still cool that you get those kind of features with the manual transmission. One thing you don't get is any sort of steering correction if you depart the lane. It'll just beep at you, it'll let you know what happened, but not do anything about it. It is going to be more work. It is going to be less relaxing to commute in a GR86 than, well, certainly your average passenger car, but even some sports cars. I'm gonna leave the top up for just a short while longer because I'm on my way to get a haircut now, and that's gonna put me on the highway so we can listen to the cabin volume with this in place. Joining the highway and get now to a cruising speed. I'm gonna quiet up and listen in. Yeah, you get a little of everything, huh? Wind noise, tire noise. This is a louder road surface, I will say that. And some outside road noise. So it's not going to be a tranquil commuting environment. But it's not horrendous. I would put up with this. Hopping back to the commute conditions for the Miata for just a moment. This vehicle doesn't have the latest and greatest in driver assistance systems. You've got blind spot monitoring, as I mentioned, but you don't have a lane keep assist system. You don't have adaptive cruise control. You just have regular cruise control. But that's appropriate for this vehicle's purpose, which is really just to be driven actively at all times. I am going to move into the sport drive mode before I take this freeway on ramp with some pace. Dampers having firmed up quite a bit here. Keeps us nice and flat. The P0 summer tires get the power to the ground along with that Torsen limited slip differential with this performance package. And as long as you are in the right part of the rev range, you have more than sufficient passing power from this NA V8. Because if you find yourself in too high of a gear, foot to the floor, you're just very slowly going to be churning away there. Now, I am going to move into sixth gear, And we're going to start to coast on the highway and listen for the NVH level inside the cabin. Appreciable levels of road and tire and wind noise, and particularly I get wind noise from the door seam, and I know the window's all the way up, the door is firmly closed, but I get a whistling sound there at certain velocities, and then at park throttle you hear that rumble from that V8. Never really quiets down all that much. That could become a little tedious depending on your commute length and the amount of time you spend on the highway. At least you have excellent sight lines over the hood and out the windows, out the back even. I can see with the naked eye. There's only a little bit of a blind spot at that C-pillar, and we do have standard blind spot monitoring in this car. This is such a revelation by comparison to the competitor to the Mustang, the Chevy Camaro, where there's massive blind spots everywhere and you just feel so claustrophobic. That is not the case in this car. In regards to driving assistance features that you may want on a long highway commute, keep in mind that you'll need the 10-speed automatic version of the Mustang GT to unlock the availability of the full suite, including adaptive cruise control and steering assistance. Because if you get the manual, then you just get regular cruise control and a lane keep assist function, which I will now demonstrate by deviating ever so slightly from my lane and letting the steering correct me back. It's not going to center me in the lane, it'll just bring me back. And so it is a full hands-on system and you are going to be needing to pay attention. But if you do lose sight for just a quick second, then it's nice to have that here to correct you, to bring you back. And when you do find a gap on the highway, you can really put the hammer down and get up to some serious speed in the Mustang GT while enjoying the growl from the Coyote V8. You may be able to do that during the week, but you should save time on the weekends to carve up canyon roads, because this is really where the 86 earns its living. The first thing that stands out to me is just the steering. It's so quick and direct and loaded with feel. This is like Porsche levels of refinement for the steering. And I can't think of higher praise than that. And this Trueno edition with its Brembo brake upgrade has some stupendous stopping power. Just that instant bite and composed slowing to match the control of body motions through corners. You just want to rip this car harder because it does reward you as you lean into it. And should the opportunity present itself, that Torsen LSD in the back does allow for playfulness. And though the pilot sports on this Trueno aren't as eager to slide as the Prius tires you can get on other versions of the 86, grip is still a very good thing. It's probably a good time to mention that I actually own a Miata. Not a current generation Miata, it's an NA first generation. And it's technically not street legal, it's a race car. But the NA I had before that car was street legal, and it was my only car. I lived in a city, and I did everything in it. I commuted in it, I went camping in it, I went shopping in it, and I was a happy person, just as I am now, sitting in this seat. And that happiness turns to outright glee when you get the Miata on a good road, where it can play. Oh, and the changes they made for this 24 car, first to the steering system, allows it to communicate better. It's still light, this steering rack, but now just off center, you've got that dialed up resistance so it's always talking. And the updates to the differential in the back means a very natural progression as the power shifts side to side. No awkward lift-off oversteer sloppiness. It's just so much smoother. Brakes still have excellent bite. Pedal placement is still such that I can easily roll my foot over and flip that throttle for perfect heel-toe rev matching. It's not a rocket ship, but it doesn't need to be, because you're having a blast through every corner, hucking it through switchbacks, diving deep into curves, feeling alive. It's a blissful driving experience. One that so few cars capture with such authority, such purpose. I would spend many a day like this. But arriving at that 7,500 RPM red line is just one aspect of life in the Miata. I've got more to show you just ahead. Who am I kidding? There should be a lot of life in the Miata. Because it's a life well spent. Go, 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 go! Stop, 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 stop. Oh, and sometimes slide, slide, slide. But in your real world application, if you've got everything set up, you could just hit launch control and just hit acceleration timer start and be able to use those fun things. Maybe not on your commute, but maybe on that side road home, which I have a feeling needs to be explored more. Because remember, that Coyote V8 isn't just for making great noises. Those Brembo brakes aren't just for style. And that MagneRide suspension isn't just for comfort. They all have their part to play in turning your back road home into a joyride. Well, crew, the battle of the affordable sports cars did not disappoint. In terms of quickness, power led the way, with the Mustang GT arriving at 60 well over a second quicker than the other cars. It was 4.79 seconds for the GT, 6.23 for the GR, and 6.34 for the MX-5. Interior storage would seem like an easy win for the larger Mustang, yet I found the GR86's use of space to be superior, especially when you consider it also gets folding rear seats, which don't fit people in either the GR or the GT. Around town, each car is easy to drive, but the Miata combines its small footprint, peppy engine, and talkative transmission for the most enjoyable out and about attitude. On choppier roads, both the Miata and GR86 take bumps in stride, but it's only the Mustang that can be equipped with adaptive dampers that suppresses road blemishes best. If I were comparing the Miata RF, then the Mustang would take the win for outward visibility, but the Miata convertible's single-second conversion spontaneous top-down driving enables truly unobstructed views. As a commuter, the Miata struggles most, but the GR86 and GT trade blows with adaptive cruise control in the GR, but more comfortable seats and a slightly quieter ride in the GT. It's a narrow victory, but I'm giving this one to the GT. But when the road gets twisty, the lighter, more agile GR86 and Miata come into their own. And between the two, the Toyota toes the line ever so slightly better between cornering flatness and glee than the looser Miata. Styling is, of course, the most subjective category, and given my preference for the last generation of Mustang, I'm gonna default to the cute but mature looks of the Miata. If that was the end of the story, then the Mustang GT would emerge the victor, but when price enters the equation, the conclusion gets murkier. Because while the Miata and GR86 are $1,500 apart in the low 30s, the Mustang GT kicks things off at nearly 49 grand. So the question is whether the GT is 50% better of a sports car for 50% more money. And I'm not convinced it is. So if you have a second, more practical car, grab a Miata and love it dearly. But if you're trying to do it all with one vehicle, the GR86 is the winner. I hope you guys have enjoyed this comparison, and let me know which vehicles you want to see matched up next.